Hello, ladies and gentlemen, friends and foes, boys and girls. Maybe you should stay out of this video. So, I want to share a little bit about uh, Norway's political uh, attitude and the philosophy that has been ruling the mainstream media in Norway for decades and decades. So I am soon 58 years old, and I came to this country from Africa in 1970, in September 1970. So then I grew up. I learned Norwegian properly in 3 months when I grew up in Africa, in the village there in Cameroon. My first language was Nyahdi. With my brother, we spoke with played with all the local guys, but of course our parents they are Norwegians, and so we knew some Norwegian, but we basically liked to communicate in Nyakti, Munimsa, Munim Jama, Jame, Stoko, Muninsa, Munasa. Okay, so I came from a missionary background where I grew up in a village, and even though I was just 3 years plus, I already had in me some values, and of course they were also imparted to me from my father. I always had respect for people who were older than me, for elders, and I always trusted in my teachers and in what you read in the newspapers, what you hear on TV. At the same time, my father always read from the Bible to me and my older brother. Every evening we read something from the Bible, like a story, for example, about David and Goliath or whatever, and we would continue every day, every night. I mean, we will continue. So we went through basically the whole Bible. He read from an illustrated Bible that was made easy for people to understand. So it was not just a massive book with only letters. And so anyway, we I went to Norwegian school, public school. Started when I was 7, and basically most things were fine until I gradually came into my teens, and then of course when you are in the pre-teen, like from 7 to 12 years old, we were in a school where the Bible was highly respected, and I think the dean was, I know he was a personal Christian believer. I know that, so he gave some very good values, and many times in the morning we started by singing a Christian song. And that was actually, I have myself been a teacher, I'm a teacher, and back in the good old days, that is what it says in the instruction, that you should start a school day with some singing a psalm or saying a prayer. So that's amazing. That was amazing. Then when I grew up, I realized that there were some conflicts between traditional values and the Norwegian political system. So what was very clear was that there was some agenda to go against the Bible, of course. And I know the whole story. I cannot bother to take your time about that. But the thing is that Norway used to be a super religious, super Christian country, a good Christian country. I'm telling you, so many, and the majority of the people in Norway during the 1800s, they were true believers in Jesus Christ. Many of them actually hated the state church and the government, but they had to, so they created their own private churches. They call them prayer houses. So we have in Norway, we call it like the low, how can I say that, like the common people's religion, okay, which is quite different from the priest and the altar and all the ceremonies and the church bells ding ding and all the priestly garments and all that stuff. So, but anyway, because of our constitution, Norway is supposed to be an evangelical Lutheran nation. Okay, so that is why somehow the government was mixed together with the church, but that is usually not a good idea. And so even the school system was actually encouraged and started up by Christians, by churches, to learn, basically to teach the people how to read the Bible, because that is the whole idea in Protestant and evangelical Reformation, was that you should learn to read the Bible by yourself, so you can check out what is true, what is a lie, etc. Because there were many lies even in the state church. So, and there are many lies today. So just to jump very quickly now, I just wanted to give a little bit foundation about Norway. So the thing is that there were some strong communist ideas coming into Norway, and those guys, the communists, they started to call themselves like socialists, which is actually just a nickname for communism. Socialism. And so we actually today, as of now today, we have they call it the Labour's Party, Arbeiderpartiet. And in the beginning they were very strongly involved with communism, openly, in the open. But they had long-term strategy. First they wanted to ban religious education from the state school system. And why do we have public school at all? Why do we have a state-run school? I think that's totally crazy. That is really making the people brainwashed in so many ways. So first they said, okay, we want to get rid of this kristendomsundervisning, the Christianity teaching in the school, because they didn't like it, you can say. But then after a while they said, if you can't beat them, join them. So now several of the politicians, they spoke very smoothly and nicely, and okay, we have to respect each other, we have to be tolerant and all kind of stuff. So Norwegians are basically very tolerant, and probably too tolerant in a way. So now it's the problem when we had the TV coming and the radio coming to our country. The government had a monopoly on both the radio and on the TV. Yeah. So, and basically even today they have like in practicality they have a monopoly on so-called serious television in Norway. And even I'm funding NRK, Norsk Rikskringkasting, Norwegian National Broadcasting, something like the BBC in the UK. Okay, so I'm financing that by over my tax. I'm paying for that shit, and they have since I was a kid. I can remember they had all this like pro-gay and pro-abortion and anti-conservatism, anti-Christian. Actually, I have heard many radio programs where Christians have been ridiculed and scorned and made laughter of since for decades, both in the Norwegian public radio station, but also in private radio stations that were allowed later on. So now Norway has grown into a society where people, it has been like this for decades, where majority of the people are brainwashed, totally brainwashed, and they totally believe in all the stuff, the shit that the media spews out. And I see that some people, like in Norway, when the conflict, the real conflict started in Ukraine, when Russia invaded in eastern Ukraine, how long time is that? Is it 2 or 3 years? I don't even recall. I think it's 3 years ago now. I think so. The point is that, I was in the Philippines at the time, and then I was in Thailand. I just came back to Norway in June 2024, and I'm still in Norway. But I never bought that idea that Putin is a devil and that he totally, out of no reason, good reason at all, just invaded Ukraine, and so people were so putting Ukrainian flags everywhere as if Putin would be Hitler or something like that. And Norway actually opened up for thousands of Ukrainian refugees, which is quite interesting because before it would be very hard for a Ukrainian person to come and to Norway because they were not a part of the European Union, right? So now, of course, so many Ukrainians, of course, some of them had to flee. That's obvious, uh, and but then they stopped the men from fleeing because they say all the men have to remain in the country and fight. So we have a lot of Ukrainians here now. I think Ukrainians are very lovely people. I mean, I don't know much about them, but I lived in Romania for a long time. I speak Romanian fluently, and Romania is neighboring with Ukraine. And yeah, what I want to say is we are actually neighbors. Norway is neighbor with Russia. And if you go back in history, Russia was a part of liberating the northern of Norway during the Second World War. And they could have remained there like they did in Germany and Romania and those Baltic countries. They could have remained in north of Norway, just taken it, but they didn't. They retracted. And we know that millions of Russian soldiers, they died because they were fighting against our common enemy, Adolf Hitler and the Nazi Germany. Okay, so, and even at that time they were communist, you know. So then we have the Cold War and all that kind of stuff. But you know, Norway was, yeah, we became a member of NATO, and I understand that because if Russia wanted to invade Norway, they had a very good reason to do it because we have a very long coastline with a lot of harbors that are open year around, while in Russia most of the harbors they are frozen in the winter time, you know. So anyway, we had when I grew up, yeah, we didn't really particularly like the Russians and the Soviet Union because of all the gulags and all kind of persecution against the Christians and so forth. So we were very happy when the Berlin Wall fell. I was actually in Romania during the communist time, in Ceausescu's time. I was there in Romania, and I was very happy when the wall fell. Now, forward, what happened is that at that time, people thought, okay, Russia is never going to be a problem anymore. Soviet Union was dissolved. Was that in 91 or 1992, something like that? It was dissolved. And then yeah, the Russians, they're quite different from us. You know, the language, the culture is quite different from Western Union and from Norway. But even our Norwegian culture is very different from French culture. I know, I've been living in France for a year. I studied in France when I was 16 years old. I've been living in Romania for a couple of years, non-stop, plus, plus, plus. So, and I speak Romanian fluently. Romanian culture is totally different from Norwegian culture. Spanish culture is totally different. Italian, you can say it. So Norway, even Polish culture is very different from Norwegian. So we can say that we are up here in Norway and Sweden and Denmark. We have many similarities in the culture, in the language. So we are naturally bound together through history. But we have no normal connections to Ukraine. And so I wrote on my Facebook page just a few days before Putin decided to invade Ukraine. I think it was like 3 weeks before it happened. I wrote on my Facebook page that it seems like Joe Biden is trying to start a war between Russia and Ukraine. And I stand for those words since. And I have never been willing to jump on that bandwagon of, oh yeah, Putin is an idiot and Ukraine, they're totally innocent and so forth and so forth. So this is so crazy what has been going on. And the politicians here, they always claim that Russia is the terrible big bear, you know, who's gonna devour everybody, even Western Europe and all kind of bullshit they're talking about Russia. Russia is just trying to defend their own borders, and it was promised to them, even to Gorbachev back in the 1980s, that NATO, which is the defense alliance, NATO, okay, it's the Western European countries basically. Norway was a part of it, and then together with the United States, it was created to deter Russia or Soviet Union from invading one of our countries. But it should have been dissolved, basically, after the Berlin Wall fell and the communists lost the power in Soviet Union. And Soviet Union was dissolved. So why do we have a NATO? Now NATO has become more like an aggressive military union. We attacked Serbia for no good reason and bombed Serbia, bombed Belgrade. I've been there in Belgrade, in Albania, and Kosovo. Were there during the war, so I know a little bit about what happened there. And then later on, they bombed Libya. Can you imagine? Libya. Norwegian fighter jets dropped like more than 500 bombs over Libya, destroying a lot of infrastructure and all kind of bullshit. We had nothing to do with Gaddafi. Gaddafi ran probably the best country in the whole Africa, except maybe for South Africa, at least before South Africa was good. So it was terrible how NATO has been involved in aggressive war against people who never did anything to us, okay? And so now they try to get NATO expanded. I mean, they took in Romania, they took in Bulgaria, I guess, and all those Eastern Hungary and Poland and so forth, and the Baltic nations. They all became part of NATO, even though it was promised all the time that NATO will not go 1 inch closer and more eastward, and it happened. So now we have Donald Trump. This is very interesting because Donald Trump has been demonized by the Norwegian political establishment, by the Norwegian media, has been demonized since the January 2016 when he entered office, exactly like that. And they claim he was a Russian asset and all kind of BS. So what I want to say is that me as a Norwegian, I feel very embarrassed when the Norwegian politicians applaud one of the most corrupted countries in the world, which was Ukraine, applauding and attack Russia. And just now, today, the Norwegian government decided to increase our support to the war effort, for the defensive war effort in Ukraine against Russia, from 35 billion kroner to 85 billion kroner, which is totally insane. While they are closing down schools here, people are suffering, old people, sick people have to wait in line for I mean, it's totally crazy. They don't even take care of their own people, but they love to pretend like, oh yeah, Norway's going to save Ukraine. You know, you're just putting gasoline on the fire, on the war. Trump tried to stop the war, you know. You have to come to the point where you realize that Ukraine would never win that war in the first place, and the more money, the more weapon that has got, resources that was poured in on the Ukrainian side, the more people died on Ukrainian side and on Russian side, of course. And it's very serious, this stuff. It's like if you have a small boy and a big bully, and they're starting to fight in the schoolyard, and then everybody's like trying to cheer on the small boy, even if he's getting blue-eyed, he's getting this one, and he's kicked and laying on the ground. Somebody will pull him up again and push a little bit away, the big guy, and then, okay, continue the fight. You're gonna win. No, the small boy will never win over the big boy, you understand? So the more money we induce into that war for Ukraine to defend itself, the longer the war is gonna last. And you have to consider that That is not in the interest of Norway. Our neighbor is Russia. Okay, we have common border up in the north. We had many good cooperations, politically, geographically, among fisheries and so forth. Norway and Russia, we are very close to each other, actually, and we have nothing to do with Ukraine. Nothing at all. So I'm so mad with what this government is doing, and everybody's applauding. And the Prime Minister, Jonas Gahr Støre, he was interviewed by some American journalist who's obviously more like on the left side. And everybody comment, oh yeah, Norway is so fantastic, the Norwegian people are so fantastic. Okay, but if you do that, if you continue down that road, what is fantastic if Russia just decides to come and take Norway? Or to bomb Oslo, just take out Oslo with a nuclear bomb. Bang, they can do it anytime. And nobody will try to retaliate. Even not the USA will not retaliate, because Norway is now scratching, not scratching, they are trying to steal the baby from the bear, the female bear, Ukraine is like the baby of Russia. So now they're trying to interfere between the baby bear and the mother bear. You can imagine how furious that mother bear is gonna be. There's nothing that can stop her. So stop messing around with our money and using the name Norwegian. If you look at Jonas Gahr Støre, he has black hair, brown eyes. He doesn't look like a Norwegian at all. The same with Jens Stoltenberg. And his father also, they are globalists. They are not representing the people of Norway whatsoever. All these stupid politicians and mass media in Norway, I have no sympathy for them. My father served in the Norwegian army. I served in the Norwegian army. My brother served in the Norwegian army. My son served in the Norwegian army. But I would never do it again. Shame on you, Norway. Now you have to behave. You are not somebody who can waste billions and billions of dollars fueling the continuation of this war, and also receive all these thousands of refugees who are being given nice homes in Norway, while people like me, I'm staying in a fucking old chicken house. That's what I'm doing. This is an old chicken house. You can imagine. Well, I met a guy, a Ukrainian guy. He was being given a very nice villa with a full basement floor, and then the main floor, and nice garden, nice garage, everything. And I said, oh, are you here with a family? He said, no, I'm living alone. And he was actually embarrassed, because why they give me this huge villa? But me, when I came back from Philippines and Thailand after living abroad for many years, I have nowhere, and nobody want to help me. And the price of rental and everything is up because of all these Ukrainians. And before that, also all the other unwanted immigrants. We never had a colony. We don't want, the Norwegian people don't want millions of immigrants, and it's taking a toll of our economy and the housing prices, everything, and also religiously. So what I want you to know is that these brown-eyed, black-haired guys who are governing Norway, and Stoltenberg governed NATO. Stoltenberg now, he became the leader of the Bilderberg group, if you know what I'm talking about. These guys are sweet talkers, and they act like they have a best interest of the people, but they don't have. So it's time we get in Norway something like the USA got, make America great again. So we should have a similar movement in Norway, that you have to think about the people in this country. Okay, not just play around with all our resources and give it away to all kind of bullshit and letting all kind of criminals into our countries. I hope and wish that the Norwegian people would wake up from this terrible blindness and apathy and whatever. We call our prime minister the fog prince, the prince of fog, Tåkefyrsten. And he is talking blah, 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 and they do nothing. They're just destroying the whole country. Okay, thank you for listening to me, and God bless you, and God bless Norway, and God bless Ukraine, and God bless Russia, and so forth. Have a good day or night, whatever.